A black diplomat is detained and humiliated at airport security for suspicious behavior, simply existing while traveling with her daughter. When the supervisor demands her ID, what he discovers sends shockwaves through the terminal. One badge, one truth, one career destroyed in seconds. The security checkpoint crackled with tension. Maya Okonkwo stood perfectly still, her hands visible at her sides. 3 TSA officers formed a semicircle around her. Their radios hissed static. Passengers slowed their walk, heads turning, phones rising. "Ma'am, step aside, now!" Officer Brennan's voice cut through the terminal noise. His hand rested on his belt, fingers drumming near the restraints. Maya didn't move. Her 5-year-old daughter, Zara, pressed against her leg, small fingers twisting into the fabric of Maya's blazer. "I asked what I'm being detained for." Maya's voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that came from practice, from years of swallowing rage and converting it into strategy. Brennan's jaw tightened. "Secondary screening. Random selection. Random." The word hung in the air like smoke. Maya had heard it before. In different airports, different cities, always the same script. She glanced at the other passengers flowing through security, briefcases, laptops, shoes back on, moving freely toward their gates. None of them looked like her. "Mommy?" Zara's voice trembled. "It's okay, baby." Maya's hand found her daughter's head, fingers gentle in her braids. Brennan stepped closer. "Ma'am, you're making this difficult." Maya hadn't moved an inch. Behind them, a businessman in a grey suit muttered to his colleague. A woman with a rolling suitcase filmed on her phone. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, too bright, too exposing. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs, but her face remained smooth, unreadable. Brennan reached for his radio. "Need a supervisor at checkpoint 3. The terminal held its breath. "Before we continue, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? And if you believe everyone deserves dignity regardless of their status, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter." 30 minutes earlier, the terminal had been just another backdrop. Maya moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency. Black blazer, cream blouse, comfortable flats, travel clothes chosen for 14-hour days and diplomatic functions. Her carry-on rolled smoothly behind her. Zara skipped beside her, light-up sneakers flashing with each step. "Mommy, can we sit by the window? I want to see the clouds up close." "We'll try, sweetheart." Maya smiled down at her daughter. At 5 years old, Zara still believed the world was mostly good, mostly fair. Maya wanted to protect that innocence as long as possible. Ambassador Maya Okonkwo. The title felt heavy today. She'd spent the last week in Geneva, mediating talks between nations who'd been enemies for generations. 18-hour negotiation sessions, translators, tense silences across mahogany tables. She'd brokered a preliminary agreement that might actually hold. Her State Department supervisor had called it brilliant work. Now she just wanted to go home, home to Washington, to her quiet brownstone in Georgetown, to her garden where tomatoes grew despite her travel schedule, to Sunday mornings with Zara making pancakes, flour everywhere, laughter filling the kitchen. Simple things, normal things. Maya's phone buzzed. Another email. She ignored it. For the next 4 hours, she'd just be a mother on a plane. Not a diplomat. Not a negotiator. Not the only black woman in most rooms she entered. Just Maya. They joined the security line. Standard procedure. Maya had done this hundreds of times. Remove laptop. Liquids in a bag. Jacket off. Shoes off. She guided Zara through the motions, making it a game. "Shoes in the bin, baby, that's right." The line moved forward. Businessmen checked watches. A family corralled 3 small children. An elderly couple moved slowly, carefully. Everyone focused on their own journey. Maya placed her bag on the conveyor belt. Her leather carry-on followed. She walked through the metal detector, Zara's hand in hers. The beep shattered normalcy. "Step back, please." A TSA officer, young, blonde, name tag reading Rodriguez, gestured toward the detector. Again, slower this time. Maya complied, walked through again. Clean. Rodriguez glanced at her colleague. Officer Brennan approached from the side station. Tall, mid-40s, the kind of presence that commanded attention. His eyes swept over Maya with an expression she knew too well. "Assessment, judgment, decision already made. Random selection, ma'am. Step over here, please." The words were polite. The tone wasn't. Maya felt the shift. The air pressure changed. She was no longer a passenger. She was a problem. Brennan pointed toward a side table. "Metal, cold, under harsh lighting. Place your belongings here." Maya lifted her carry-on onto the table. Zara stayed close, her earlier excitement draining away. The child's instincts were sharp. She sensed danger even when she couldn't name it. Brennan unzipped the bag with theatrical slowness. He pulled out each item, examining it like evidence. Laptop, charger, toiletry bag, a children's book about planets, Zara's stuffed giraffe. "What's the purpose of your travel?" "Returning home from a work conference." "Where?" "Geneva." Brennan's eyebrow lifted. "Geneva, Switzerland." It wasn't a question. It was skepticism wrapped in syntax. "Yes." He set down the laptop harder than necessary, opened the toiletry bag, unscrewed the cap of her facial moisturizer, sniffed it. Maya's jaw tightened. She'd watched dozens of passengers flow through security behind her. None subjected to this level of scrutiny. A small crowd had gathered, passengers waiting for their own bags, now watching the show. A man in a business suit whispered to his companion. Two college students filmed on their phones. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step over to that area." Brennan pointed toward a partitioned space. "Secondary screening." "Why?" "Random security protocol. I'd like to know specifically what has triggered this selection." Brennan's expression hardened. "Are you refusing to comply?" "I'm asking for clarification. That's not refusal." Zara started crying, soft at first, then louder. "Mommy, I'm scared." Maya knelt down, eye level with her daughter. "It's okay, baby." "We're okay." She smoothed Zara's braids, her voice gentle despite the rage building in her chest. "Ma'am, you're creating a scene." Brennan's voice carried across the checkpoint. Other passengers turned. More phones appeared. "I haven't raised my voice once. You're being non-compliant." Maya stood slowly. Every eye in the security area watched her now. She felt exposed, dissected, guilty until proven innocent, except there was no crime, just existence, just traveling while black. "I'm complying with every request. I'm asking questions, that's my right." Brennan reached for his radio. His thumb pressed the button. Static burst through the air. "Checkpoint 3. Need a supervisor. Non-compliant passenger refusing secondary screening." The lie landed like a slap. Maya's hands trembled. She clasped them together, forcing stillness. Every instinct screamed to fight back, to correct the record, to demand justice. But she'd learned that anger from a black woman was read as aggression, that self-defense was coded as threat. So she stood, silent, documenting everything with her mind. Behind Brennan, she noticed the small black camera clipped to his uniform. The red light blinked. Recording. Every word, every action, every illegal profiling decision dressed up as random selection. Good. Let it record everything. The terminal sounds faded to white noise. Maya's heartbeat filled her ears, a drumbeat of fury and forced composure. Zara's crying had quieted to hiccups, but her small body still shook. Maya lifted her daughter onto her hip, feeling the weight, The trust, the innocence that depended on her keeping control. Breathe. Don't react. Don't give them ammunition. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Too bright. Too exposing. Maya felt every stare like a brand. The businessman in grey had his phone out now, pretending to check email, but clearly watching. The college students weren't even pretending. They filmed openly, their expressions a mix of horror and fascination. Entertainment. That's what this was to them. A spectacle. To Maya, it was Tuesday. She'd been pulled aside in Houston, questioned extensively in Atlanta, randomly selected in Chicago, Boston, Miami. Different airports, different offices, same story. The invisible pattern that everyone denied existed, but this time felt different, sharper, because Zara was here, watching, learning, her 5-year-old, mind processing the lesson that her mother's professional clothes, calm voice and perfect compliance still weren't enough. That something about them triggered suspicion. Their skin. Maya closed her eyes for 3 seconds, an old technique her father had taught her. When the world pushes, you root yourself. Find your center. Remember who you are beneath their assumptions. Ambassador Maya Okonkwo, Harvard Law top of her class, State Department negotiator, peace mediator. She'd sat across from warlords and dictators, brokered ceasefires, navigated diplomatic minefields that could trigger international incidents. None of that mattered here. Here she was just another threat to be neutralized, another body to be searched, another statistic in the TSA's random selection database that somehow always skewed toward the same demographics. Zara's fingers twisted in her blazer. "Mommy, did we do something wrong?" The question broke something in Maya's chest. "No, baby. We didn't do anything wrong, but wrong didn't matter. Not really. Not when the system was designed to suspect first, apologize never." Maya's father had prepared her for this. Dr. James Okonkwo had emigrated from Nigeria in the 70s. Brilliant chemist, accent that drew stares, skin that drew worse. He'd taught chemistry at a small state college, published research that peers respected, raised 2 daughters with one rule: never shrink yourself to fit their limited imagination. "Maya, listen to me." His voice echoed across 30 years. She was 7, crying because a teacher had accused her of cheating. Her test score was too high for someone who looked like her. Her father had knelt down, his warm hands on her shoulders. "The world will try to make you small. They will question your intelligence, your achievements, your right to occupy space. Don't fight their ignorance with anger. Fight it with excellence, with documentation, with dignity that cannot be ignored." He'd marched into that school with her test scores, her homework, her papers, laid them out like evidence in court. The teacher had apologized. Maya had learned documentation, evidence, unshakable composure. She'd carried that lesson through every challenge. Through Harvard, where classmates assumed she was an affirmative action admission, until she outperformed them. Through the State Department, where she was the youngest black woman ever promoted to ambassador. Through negotiation rooms where men twice her age initially dismissed her, then grudgingly respected her skill. She'd earned every title, every promotion, every seat at every table, but in this airport none of it registered. She was just another black woman traveling, another body to profile, another random selection. Her father had died 3 years ago. Cancer, sudden and cruel. His last words to her: "Make me proud, little one." Change the world. She'd tried. God, she'd tried. But standing here, holding her crying daughter, subjected to humiliation for the crime of existing, Maya felt the weight of every ancestor who'd fought this same battle. Different era, different venue, same exhausting script. Zara shifted in her arms. "Mommy, I need to use the bathroom." "Soon, baby." How long had they been standing here? 10 minutes? 15? Time moved strangely under surveillance. Maya glanced at the security line behind her. Still moving. still flowing. Passengers progressing toward their gates while she remained frozen, waiting for Brennan's supervisor, waiting for permission to be human. Movement at the checkpoint entrance caught Maya's attention. A supervisor approached. Older. Grey at the temples, name badge reading Harris. His stride was measured, his expression neutral but alert. He scanned the scene with practiced eyes. Crying child filming passengers, Brennan's defensive posture. This was a problem. He could sense it. What's the situation? Harris directed the question at Brennan, but his gaze lingered on Maya. Brennan straightened. Random security selection, sir. Passenger has been non-compliant and evasive. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. Maya felt her rage crystallize into something colder, more strategic. I've complied with every instruction, Maya said quietly. I asked for clarification on why I was selected. That's not evasion. Harris studied her, then looked at Zara, tear-stained face pressed against her mother's shoulder, then at the phone still recording. His jaw tightened imperceptibly. Officer Brennan walked me through the selection criteria. Brennan hesitated. Standard random selection protocol, sir. Based on what parameters? Detector alert. The detector that she walked through twice with no additional alerts. Harris's voice remained even, but there was steel underneath. Maya saw it then, the micro-expression of calculation on Harris's face. He knew Brennan had profiled her. The question was whether he'd acknowledge it or protect his officer. Authority protecting authority. The oldest script. Sir, I've been trained to identify suspicious behavior. What suspicious behavior? Maya interrupted. Her voice stayed calm, but she was done being silent. Walking through security with my daughter? Asking questions about why I'm being detained? Please specify what about my behavior has been suspicious. Silence fell. Passengers had stopped even pretending not to watch. The college student's phone was aimed directly at the confrontation. The businessman had lowered his own device, attention fully engaged. Harris cleared his throat. Ma'am, I apologize for any inconvenience. If you could provide your identification, we can expedite. Why do I need to provide identification when I've already passed through initial screening? Standard verification protocol. For random selections? Or for passengers who look like me? The words hung in the air. No one moved. Harris's expression flickered. Discomfort, then defensiveness, then careful neutrality. Ma'am, I understand you're frustrated, but I need to verify your identity to resolve this situation. Maya's diplomatic training kicked in fully. She'd trapped him. He'd just admitted this wasn't standard protocol. It was about resolving a situation. About managing optics. About containing a scene that multiple people were recording. She made her decision. Fine. Maya shifted Zara on her hip, reached into her blazer's inner pocket. My identification. She pulled out a slim leather case, black, worn at the edges. She'd carried it through 30 countries, across 100 borders. It had weight, history, power that transcended airports and petty authority. She handed it to Harris. He opened it. His face drained of color. The muscles in his jaw went slack. His hands holding the case started trembling. Inside, the credential gleamed under fluorescent light. United Nations diplomatic credentials. Ambassador Maya A. Okonkwo, United States. Department of State International Immunity under Vienna. Convention, the badge seemed to glow. Gold seal, official stamps. Clearance levels that superseded airport security. Immunity that couldn't be violated. Harris's eyes darted from the badge to Maya's face. Back to the badge. His lips parted, but no sound emerged. Behind him, Brennan leaned forward to see. His confident posture crumbled. The color drained from his face. Maya watched them both with the same calm expression she'd maintained throughout. But inside, a dark satisfaction bloomed, not because of the power, because of the documentation, the evidence, the irrefutable proof that they'd profiled the wrong person, that they'd let their assumptions override procedure, that they'd treated a United States ambassador and her daughter like criminals, and every second had been recorded. Harris's hand shook as he handed back the credential case. Ambassador Okonkwo, I apologize. This is what? Maya's voice remained quiet. Deadly quiet. Standard procedure? Random selection? No, because if this is how your officers treat a diplomat, I'm terrified to imagine how they treat travelers without credentials. The words landed like grenades. Harris paled further. Behind them, passengers shifted. Phones still recording. Witnesses documenting everything. Brennan tried to speak. Ma'am, you didn't what? Didn't see my humanity? Didn't think someone who looks like me could be an ambassador? Didn't believe I had the right to question obvious profiling? Silence. Complete suffocating silence. Zara lifted her head from Maya's shoulder. Her eyes were dry now, watching her mother with something like awe. Watching the transformation from victim to force, Harris fumbled with his radio. I need to contact the airport director. To Ambassador, please, if you'd give me a moment. I've given you 15 minutes. Maya's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. 15 minutes of my daughter learning that her mother can be humiliated for no reason. 15 minutes of documented discrimination. Your body camera caught everything, Officer Brennan. Every assumption. Every illegal profiling decision. Every lie. Brennan's face went from white to gray. I'm going to make a phone call now, Maya continued. To the airport director, to my supervisor at State, and to the Media Affairs Office. Because this isn't about me. It's about every traveler who doesn't have a diplomatic credential, who can't fight back, who accepts this treatment because they have no other choice. She pulled out her phone with her free hand, scrolled to a contact. Her finger hovered over the call button. Harris's radio crackled. A voice, Supervisor Harris, report status. He grabbed the radio like a lifeline. Checkpoint 3, we have a situation. Need. The director immediately. The terminal seemed to hold its breath. Maya pressed dial. The airport director arrived within 8 minutes. Margaret Chen moved through the checkpoint with the efficiency of someone accustomed to crisis management. Late 50s, sharp blazer, expression that gave nothing away. Her eyes swept the scene, phones recording, passengers clustered. Harris looking like he might be sick, Brennan frozen in place. And Maya, still holding Zara, still calm, still waiting. Ambassador Okonkwo. Chen extended her hand. I'm Margaret Chen, airport director. I apologize profusely for this situation. Maya shifted Zara but didn't take the hand. I'd like to see the security footage from the last 30 minutes. And Officer Brennan's body camera recording. Chen's hand dropped. Of course, absolutely. If we could discuss this in my office, here is fine. Maya's voice remained level. These passengers witnessed what happened. They deserve to see the resolution. Chen's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She turned to Harris. Get me the footage, now. Harris practically ran toward the security station. Brennan shifted his weight, looking anywhere but at Maya. The businessman in grey had moved closer, phone still out. The college students whispered to each other, their recording devices capturing everything. Ambassador, I want to assure you this is not representative of our security standards. Then what is it representative of? Maya interrupted quietly. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like your security standards. Profiling dressed up as random selection. Chen's professional mask slipped for a fraction of a second. Discomfort flickered across her face. Harris returned with a tablet. His hand still shook. Footage from Checkpoint 3, last 45 minutes. Chen took the tablet, tilted it so Maya could see. Pressed play, the video showed everything. Maya walking through the detector cleanly. Brennan approaching immediately. The intrusive search of her belongings. His radio call claiming she was non-compliant when she'd been standing perfectly still. His lies documented in high definition. Brennan, Chen's voice went cold. My office now. Director Chen, I was following Proto now. Brennan's mouth opened, closed. He glanced at Maya one more time, something between resentment and fear in his eyes, then walked toward the security office. His shoulders were hunched, defeated. Chen turned back to Maya. Ambassador, I cannot express how deeply sorry I am. This is unacceptable. We will conduct a full investigation, and I can promise you there will be consequences. Promises. Maya had heard them before. Apologies that came only after credentials were revealed. After lawsuits threatened. After cameras forced accountability. What about the passengers without diplomatic immunity? Maya asked. The ones who get profiled every day and have no recourse. Chen hesitated. We have training programs, oversight committees. Do you have data? Maya's diplomatic precision cut through the corporate speak. Officer Brennan's selection history. Demographics of passengers he's flagged for secondary screening over the past year. I'd like that data, today. The director's expression shifted. This wasn't just damage control anymore. This was an ambassador who knew how systems worked, who understood documentation, who wouldn't be placated with apologies and promises. I'll have it compiled immediately. Good. Maya finally set Zara down, but kept her hand on her daughter's shoulder. I'll also need the contact information for your civil rights compliance officer and the TSA regional administrator. Of course, the crowd around them had grown. Passengers missed connections to watch justice unfold in real time. Their phones captured every word. Tomorrow this would be on social media. News sites, blogs. The story would spread. Diplomat detained, officer's career destroyed by his own assumptions. But Maya felt no triumph. Only exhaustion. Chen escorted them to a private lounge herself, leather chairs, complimentary refreshments, windows overlooking the runway, everything soft and apologetic. Zara immediately grabbed a juice box and collapsed into a chair, emotionally spent. Maya stood by the window, watching planes take off. Her reflection stared back, professional, composed, unbroken. Inside she was splintering. Her phone buzzed. The State Department, her supervisor Thomas calling back. Maya? What the hell happened? Chen's office just called the secretary directly. I was profiled at airport security, detained, searched, accused of non-compliance. In front of my daughter. Her voice remained steady, professional. It's handled now, but I want it documented. Official report filed with TSA Oversight and the Department's Civil Rights Division. Silence on the other end. Then, Jesus, are you okay? I'm fine. And Zara? Maya glanced at her daughter. Zara sat curled in the oversized chair, juice box clutched in both hands, eyes distant. Processing. She's learning lessons she shouldn't have to learn at 5. I'll make the calls. Full investigation, and Maya? I'm sorry, I know. She did know. Thomas was one of the good ones. But individual goodness didn't fix systemic problems. I'll send my formal statement tonight. She ended the call. Turned from the window. Chen had returned with a folder. The data you requested. Officer Brennan's selection history for the past 18 months. Maya opened it, scanned the spreadsheet. Numbers became a story. A damning predictable story. 47 secondary screenings in 18 months. 39 were passengers of color. 8 were white travelers, all flagged after detector alerts or K9 responses. Legitimate reasons, the other 39. Random selection, no alerts. No behavioral indicators, just assumptions hardwired into bias. He's been doing this for a year and a half, Maya said quietly. How many complaints were filed? Chen shifted uncomfortably. 7. And what action was taken? Additional training, counseling. So nothing. Maya closed the folder. 7 complaints. 39 targeted passengers. And the system protected him until he happened to profile someone with diplomatic credentials. Ambassador, we take all complaints seriously. Do you? Maya's calm finally cracked. Not into anger. Into something sharper, more precise. Because this data suggests you take complaints seriously, Only when cameras are rolling and ambassadors are involved. Chen had no answer. Because there was no answer. The system was working exactly as designed, protecting its own until forced into accountability. Officer Brennan has been suspended without pay pending a full investigation, Chen said finally. And I'm implementing immediate policy changes. Mandatory bias training. Oversight on all secondary screenings. External audits of selection data. Send me the implementation timeline. I'll be following up. It wasn't a request, Chen nodded. She looked genuinely shaken. Whether from embarrassment or actual remorse, Maya couldn't tell. Didn't matter. Policy change was policy change. Your flight board's in 40 minutes. I've arranged for priority boarding and upgraded your seats. First class, if that's acceptable. Maya wanted to refuse. Didn't want special treatment. Wanted to fly like every other passenger who didn't. Have diplomatic credentials to shield them. But Zara was exhausted, traumatized. She deserved comfort. Thank you. Chen left. Finally, Maya sank into the chair beside her daughter, pulled Zara onto her lap. The girl came willingly, curling into her mother's chest like she was 3 again. Mommy, are we in trouble? No, baby. We're not in trouble. We never were. Then why did that man treat us like that? The question every black parent dreads. The one with no good answer. Only true ones. Maya took a breath. Sometimes people make wrong guesses about others. They look at someone and make assumptions instead of seeing who they really are. Is it because we're brown? 5 years old. And she'd already learned to name it. Maya's heart cracked. Sometimes, yes. Some people have ideas in their heads that aren't true or fair. But we don't let those ideas change who we are. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Then, did you show him you're important? And there it was. The lesson Maya hadn't wanted to teach. That importance mattered. That credentials created protection. That some people only listened when you had titles and badges and power. I showed him facts, Maya said carefully. I showed him that judging people based on how they look is wrong. And that there are consequences for treating people unfairly. Is he going to get in trouble? Yes. Good. Zara's voice held a satisfaction that was too old for 5. Too knowing. Maya held her tighter. Tomorrow they'd talk more. Tomorrow she'd explain nuance and complexity. How systems worked. How change happened slowly. How one person's consequences didn't fix everything. But tonight, her daughter needed to believe justice was simple. That wrong was punished. That her mother could protect her. Even when Maya knew the truth was far more complicated, they boarded the plane in silence. First class. Spacious seats, attentive flight attendants who smiled too brightly, clearly briefed on the situation. Maya wanted to disappear, wanted to be invisible for just a few hours, but she'd never been allowed invisibility. Her skin made sure of that. Zara settled by the window, forehead pressed against the glass. She hadn't spoken since asking about Brennan's punishment. Maya recognized the silence, processing, absorbing, building defenses against a world that had revealed its cruelty. 5 years old. The other first-class passengers boarded. A white couple in their 60s dressed for vacation. A businessman who immediately opened his laptop. A young woman with designer luggage and noise-canceling headphones. None of them had been detained today. None of them had watched their children learn about prejudice in real time. Maya's phone buzzed. Messages flooding in. Thomas from State. Investigation officially opened. Her sister Amara saw the videos online. Holy shit, are you okay? Her college roommate. You're trending on Twitter. You're a hero. The word felt hollow. She didn't want to be a hero. She wanted to have flown home without incident. Wanted Zara to still believe airports were exciting adventures, not places where mothers got detained for existing. The flight attendant approached. Young apologetic smile. Ambassador, can I get you anything? Champagne, water? Water is fine. And a juice box for my daughter. Of course. And please, if you need anything at all, just let me know. The special treatment stung. Yesterday, she would have been just another passenger. Today, after her credentials and the viral videos, she was someone who mattered, someone worth accommodating. What about yesterday? What about every other black traveler who didn't have a badge? The plane filled. Passengers found seats. Overhead bins slammed shut. Maya stared at the seat-back screen, seeing nothing. Zara's small voice broke the silence. "Mommy, I don't like airplanes anymore." Maya's chest constricted. "Baby, don't they make bad things happen?" How do you explain that bad things happen everywhere? That airports weren't special. That prejudice lived in grocery stores and schools and playgrounds. That her daughter's skin would invite assumptions for the rest of her life. You don't. Not at 5. Airplanes are still magic, Maya said softly. They take us to new places. Let us see clouds up close. Today was hard, but that doesn't mean flying isn't wonderful. Zara didn't look convinced. The plane pushed back from the gate. The captain's voice came through speakers. Routine announcements, flight time, weather at destination. Normal words in an abnormal day. Maya closed her eyes, breathed. Her father's voice echoed again. Dignity under pressure. Always dignity. She'd maintained it, barely, but God, she was tired. Tired of being strong. Tired of educating. Tired of turning trauma into teachable moments. Tired of representing every black woman instead of just being one. The plane accelerated down the runway. Lifted. Gravity pulled at her body as they climbed. Beside her, Zara finally looked away from the window. "Mommy?" "Yes, baby. When I grow up, I want to be important like you. So people can't be mean," and there it was. The lesson Maya had fought so hard not to teach. That importance protected. That credentials mattered more than humanity. That you had to earn respect instead of deserving it by default. Maya pulled Zara close. "You're already important. You were born important. You don't need a badge to matter." But even as she said it, she knew the world would tell Zara otherwise. Every day. In 1,000 small ways. The plane leveled off. The seatbelt sign chimed off. Around them, passengers relaxed into their flights. Maya stared out the window at clouds that looked like mountains. Like barriers. Like the distance between who she was and how she was seen. She'd won today. Sort of. Brennan would face consequences. Policies might change. The videos would spread awareness, but victory felt like ashes. Because tomorrow another black traveler would be randomly selected. Another mother would stand frozen while her children watched. Another human would be reduced to a threat based on nothing but appearance, and most of them wouldn't have diplomatic credentials to fight back. Maya's phone buzzed again an hour into the flight. Email from Thomas. Subject line urgent. You need to see this. She opened it. An attachment. A compiled file of complaints against Officer Brennan. Not just the 7 Chen had mentioned. 14 complaints over 2 years. Filed by passengers. Buried by middle management. Dismissed as misunderstandings or procedural confusion. 14 people. 14 incidents of profiling. 14 voices ignored. Until today. Until someone with power and credentials forced the issue. Maya scrolled through the complaints. The pattern was suffocating in its consistency. Officer Brennan singled me out for additional screening. I'm African American. Every other passenger in my group was white. They all passed through without issue. My hijab seemed to trigger intensive questioning. Officer Brennan asked where I was really from 3 times, traveling with my teenage son. We're Latino. Brennan pulled us aside, searched our bags thoroughly, asked if we had weapons. My son is 15. Voices, stories, pain documented and filed away. Maya's diplomatic mind engaged fully now. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was structural, systemic. This was evidence that could force real change. She forwarded the email to her personal account, then to 3 people. Her supervisor at State, a civil rights attorney friend, and a journalist at the Washington Post who specialized in TSA accountability. Subject line, documentation of pattern and practice. On the record, she hit send. Zara had fallen asleep, head on Maya's shoulder, exhaustion finally overwhelming trauma. Her breathing was soft and even, innocent. Maya kissed the top of her daughter's head. "I'm going to make this mean something," she whispered. Her phone buzzed immediately. The journalist, "Holy shit! Can we talk when you land?" Maya typed back, "Yes, I want every story told." "Not just mine." The flight attendant passed by, noticed Zara sleeping, lowered her voice. "She's beautiful. Thank you. I saw the videos." The attendant hesitated. "What happened to you was wrong." "I'm glad you fought back," Maya nodded, accepted the solidarity. But she thought about all the flight attendants who'd seen similar incidents and said nothing. All the witnesses who'd looked away. All the complaints filed into void. One viral video shouldn't be necessary for basic human dignity, but here they were. She opened her laptop, started typing. A formal statement for the investigation, but also something more, an op-ed. She'd publish it in the Post or the Times, or wherever would run it. She'd use her platform, her credentials, her access to make noise. "I was detained today at airport security, not because I set off alarms, not because of suspicious behavior, but because a TSA officer looked at me and saw a threat. My diplomatic credentials eventually ended the situation. But I keep thinking about every traveler who doesn't have those credentials, who endures this treatment and has no recourse, who teaches their children to accept humiliation as the price of travel." The words flowed, sharp, precise, undeniable. Her father would have been proud. He'd taught her to document, to build cases, to turn pain into evidence that couldn't be ignored. By the time the captain announced their descent, Maya had written 1,500 words. A complete accounting, personal story woven with statistical evidence, individual trauma connected to systemic failure. She saved the document, sent it to her editor contact. The plane descended through clouds. Zara woke, groggy and disoriented. Maya smoothed her hair. "Almost home, baby. Did you fix it?" Zara asked sleepily. "The bad man?" "I'm working on it." "Okay." Zara settled back against her mother, trusting in a way that broke Maya's heart. Believing that mothers could fix anything, that justice was inevitable. Maya wished she had that kind of faith, but she'd do the work anyway. File the reports, push for policy change, tell the stories. Not because she believed systems would suddenly become just, but because not fighting meant accepting. And she'd never accepted injustice. Not for herself. Not for her daughter. Not for anyone. The wheels touched down. Smooth landing. Passengers applauded. That bizarre ritual of celebrating something that happened thousands of times daily without incident. Maya gathered their belongings. Zara held her hand as they deplaned. Walked through the familiar terminal toward baggage claim. Home finally. But home felt different now, heavier, like she'd crossed a threshold she couldn't uncross. Zara had seen something today that couldn't be unseen. Learned something that couldn't be unlearned. The world wasn't fair, and credentials mattered more than humanity. Maya hated that lesson, but she'd use it. Use her access, her platform, her position, to amplify voices that usually went unheard. Starting tomorrow, tonight, she'd just hold her daughter and try to explain why some people judge books by covers. Why assumption? Tonight she'd be a mother trying to protect innocence already lost. Tomorrow, she'd be an ambassador demanding accountability. 3 weeks later, Maya sat in a congressional hearing room. The Committee on Homeland Security had convened an emergency session on TSA profiling practices. The viral videos had forced their hand. Millions of views, thousands of shares, stories flooding in from travelers who'd experienced similar treatment. Maya was the lead witness. But she'd insisted on something else. A platform for others. The committee chairman gavelled the session to order. "We're here to examine allegations of systemic profiling within Transportation Security Administration procedures. Ambassador Okonkwo, thank you for your testimony today." Maya nodded. She wore a navy blazer, minimal jewelry, diplomat mode, fully engaged. Behind her in the gallery sat 14 people. The 14 who'd filed complaints against Brennan. The ones whose voices had been buried. She'd found them all. Contacted them, asked them to come. To bear witness, Chairman, committee members, thank you for this opportunity. Maya's voice filled the room. On October 16th, I was detained at airport security. The incident was filmed and went viral. But I'm not here to talk only about what happened to me. She paused. Let the silence build. I'm here to talk about a pattern, a system that claims to use random selection, but somehow consistently targets travelers of color. A structure that buries complaints, protects officers and forces passengers to accept humiliation as the price of flying. Clicks and flashes from press photographers. Committee members leaned forward. Officer Brennan, who detained me, had 14 complaints filed against him over 2 years. 14. All documented. All investigated internally. All dismissed. She nodded toward the gallery. Those 14 people are here today. I'd like you to hear from them. Not from me. From the travelers who don't have diplomatic credentials, who filed complaints and were ignored, who represent thousands of others who never reported because they didn't believe anything would change. The chairman hesitated, then nodded. We'll hear from them all. One by one they testified. Marcus, an engineer from Atlanta. Brennan pulled me aside 3 times in 6 months. Always asked if I had weapons. I'm a father of 2 traveling for work. I carry a laptop and protein bars. Aaliyah, a college student. He asked where I was really from 4 times. I'm from Ohio, but my hijab made me foreign in his eyes, suspicious, dangerous. David, a high school teacher. My son is 15, Latino. Brennan searched him so aggressively that my kid wouldn't fly for a year. Developed anxiety, still in therapy. The stories piled up. Each one a variation on the same theme. Targeted, questioned, searched, humiliated, dismissed. The committee members' expressions shifted from professional interest to visible discomfort to something approaching shame. These aren't isolated incidents, Maya said when the testimony ended. This is systematic profiling, enabled by a system that prioritizes security theater over civil rights, that protects its officers over passengers, that only responds when cameras force accountability. She pulled out a document, placed it on the table. This is data from 3 major airports over 5 years. Secondary screening demographics. The numbers are damning. The chairman took the document. His face tightened as he read. 68% of secondary screenings targeted passengers of color. In demographics where people of color represent 30% of travelers, the statistical disparity is undeniable. This isn't random selection. This is profiling with official sanction. Murmurs in the gallery. Reporters scribbling notes. Committee members exchanging glances. Ambassador, what reforms do you recommend? A senator from California, her expression sympathetic but calculating. Political optics at work. 3 things, Maya ticked them off. First, independent oversight of all secondary screenings. External audits of selection data published quarterly. Transparency that exposes patterns before they become entrenched. Second, mandatory training that's actually effective. Not checkbox compliance, but real bias intervention with measurable outcomes. Third, consequences. Real consequences. Not additional training for officers with multiple complaints. Termination. Criminal investigation where appropriate. Accountability that changes behavior. Those are substantial reforms. They're basic requirements, Maya interrupted. We're not talking about revolutionary change. We're talking about treating all passengers with equal dignity. That shouldn't be controversial. Silence fell. The kind of silence that meant cameras were capturing everything. That tomorrow's headlines were being written in real time. The chairman cleared his throat. Officer Brennan. What's his current status? Terminated, Maya said. 3 weeks ago. After video evidence forced action. But terminating one officer doesn't fix a system. 14 complaints were filed and ignored. How many other officers have similar patterns? How many travelers have given up reporting because nothing ever changes? No one answered. Because there was no good answer. I had diplomatic credentials, Maya continued softly. That's why this became news. That's why we're in this hearing room. But every day, travelers without my resources experience the same treatment and have nowhere to turn. That's the problem, not one bad officer. A structure that enables bias and punishes accountability. She looked directly at the committee chairman. You have the power to change this. Real reform, not press releases and promises. Actual, measurable, enforceable change. Will you? The challenge hung in the air. Cameras captured every face, every expression. This would be news cycle gold, ambitious politician or craven bureaucrat. Their response would define them. The chairman shifted, chose his words carefully. This committee will draft comprehensive reform legislation, with input from civil rights organizations, TSA leadership, and affected communities. Ambassador, we'd like you to consult on that process. Maya nodded. Small victory. But victory nonetheless. I'll consult. On one condition, that the 14 people behind me are also at the table. Their voices matter as much as mine. More, actually. Because they fought this battle without credentials to protect them. The chairman agreed. Had no choice, really. Not with cameras rolling. The hearing continued for another hour. Technical questions. Policy details. Political posturing. But the core message had landed. Profiling would no longer be invisible, buried, accepted as the price of security. People were watching now. And watching changed everything. 6 months later, Maya walked through the same airport. Different trip. Different conference. Same terminal where Brennan had detained her. But everything had changed. New signs posted at security checkpoints. Know Your Rights secondary screening guidelines. Phone numbers for civil rights complaints. QR codes linking to oversight data. The reforms had passed. Not perfectly. Politics never delivered perfect. But substantially. Independent auditing. Mandatory bias training, with termination consequences for non-compliance. Public dashboards showing selection demographics. Small victories that might eventually add up to systemic change. Maya moved through security smoothly. No detention, no questions, just standard procedure. She noticed a young black woman ahead of her traveling with an infant. The woman's shoulders were tight, defensive, prepared for trouble that didn't come. She cleared security, relief visible in her posture. Maya smiled. One less person traumatized today. Small victories. Zara wasn't with her this trip, staying with Amara for spring break. But they'd talked before Maya left. Her daughter, now 5.5, had asked, "Are you going to make more things better?" "I'm going to try, baby." "Okay, be safe, Mommy." The resilience of children. The way they processed trauma and kept growing. Zara still remembered that day. Still sometimes hesitated at airports. But she was healing. Learning that fighting back mattered. That her mother's strength was real. Maya found her gate, sat with her laptop, opened her email, messages from the 14. Marcus had been promoted at work. Alia was organizing student advocacy groups. David's son was flying again, small victories. Individual healing enabled by collective action. Her father's voice echoed, "Make me proud, little one." Change the world. She was trying. God, she was trying. The world didn't change overnight. But it changed. Inch by inch. Her phone buzzed. "Thomas from State. Great work on the Geneva follow-up. Also, TSA just published Q1 oversight data. Complaints up 400%, but response time down 80%. People are reporting because they believe something will happen now." Maya smiled. Progress. Imperfect, incomplete, but real. She thought about Brennan sometimes. Wondered if he understood, if he'd examined his assumptions. Probably not. People rarely did. But he couldn't hurt anyone else. And that mattered. The gate agent called for boarding. Maya gathered her belongings. walked toward the plane. A flight attendant at the door smiled. "Welcome aboard, Ambassador. Just Maya today." "Okay, welcome aboard, Maya." She found her seat. Window this time. Watched ground crew load baggage, routine, normal, beautiful in its ordinariness. This was what she'd fought for. Not special treatment. Not recognition. Just the basic dignity of being seen as human first. Of traveling without suspicion. Of existing without justification for herself. For Zara. For every traveler who deserved better. The plane pushed back, accelerated, lifted. Maya watched the airport shrink below. That terminal where everything had changed. Where her daughter had learned hard lessons. Where injustice had been documented and finally addressed. Small victories. But victories nonetheless. She opened her laptop. Started drafting her next op-ed. There was more work to do. Always more work. But today she'd take a moment. Breathe, acknowledge progress. Change was slow. But it was possible, and sometimes that was enough. The clouds parted as they climbed to cruising altitude. Maya stared out the window, thinking about justice. The messy, incomplete, exhausting work of bending systems toward fairness. She'd won. Sort of. Brennan was gone. Policies had changed. Oversight existed where none had before. But she couldn't shake one thought. She'd won because of her credentials. Because she had power and platform and access. Because viral videos forced accountability. What about everyone else? The travelers who experienced the same treatment and had no recourse. No media connections. No diplomatic immunity. No voice loud enough to be heard. They were still out there. Still being profiled. Still teaching their children to accept humiliation. The reforms would help, maybe, if enforced, if sustained. If not slowly eroded by bureaucracy and budget cuts and political convenience. Justice wasn't a destination. It was maintenance. Constant vigilance. Eternal pushing against systems designed to protect themselves. Maya thought about her father. About dignity under pressure. About fighting with excellence and documentation and unshakable composure. She'd done that. She'd turned trauma into testimony, pain into policy, individual suffering into collective action. But God, she was tired. Tired of being strong, tired of representing, tired of every black person needing to be exceptional, just to be treated as human. The plane leveled off. Seatbelt sign chimed off. Around her, passengers relaxed into their flights, reading, sleeping, working. Existing without hypervigilance, Maya wanted that. For herself, for Zara, for everyone who looked like them, not special treatment, just normal, just human. Was that too much to ask? The answer obviously was sometimes yes. The world wasn't fair. Systems protected power. Change came slowly, painfully, incompletely, but it came. If you fought for it, if you documented, if you refused to accept injustice as inevitable, small victories accumulated. Policies changed. Voices found platforms. The arc of justice bent if you pulled hard enough. Maya closed her eyes, breathed, let exhaustion and hope mix into something like peace. Her father's voice one more time. "Make me proud. I'm trying." Dad's still trying. The plane carried her forward. Toward home. Toward rest. Toward the next fight, because there was always a next fight. But today, for these few hours, she'd just be Maya. Not an ambassador. Not a symbol. Not a warrior against systemic injustice. Just a woman on a plane, watching clouds and dreaming of a world where credentials didn't determine dignity, where every passenger was random. Every screening was fair. Every child learned that their humanity was inherent, not earned. That world didn't exist yet. But maybe if enough people fought for it, it would. One badge, one voice, one truth at a time. Justice doesn't require credentials. But until the world learns that lesson, those with credentials have an obligation to use their access, amplify silenced voices, and refuse to accept a system that protects bias over humanity. Your dignity is not negotiable, and it never should have been conditional.